Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 787 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Friday, November 14th, 2025, and it is a gorgeous day here at the Beaver Lodge. Beautiful blue sky, few fluffy little white clouds, and slightly above freezing here. So nice mid-November day here. Just absolutely perfect, exactly like I like them. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, but with me in spirit because we'll be talking Grey Cup just a little smidge today because, hey, it's the 112th Grey Cup weekend, Canada. I know that this is a big party time. It's one of the few weekends we get to celebrate being uniquely Canadian. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And well, so far, Mr. Grizzly has been right in his predictions. It is indeed the Montreal Alouettes versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the final. And Mr. Grizzly picked the Roughriders to go all the way. So, and you know it's going to be just mayhem if Saskatchewan wins. Because if there's one thing that Saskatchewan loves, it is their riders. Absolutely. And more power to you. All right. Let's see. Oh, yes. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Interesting. Looking at my hair on the monitor looks very different than it looked in the mirror in the bathroom. It looks way fuzzier and bigger, like I got 1980s hair today. And in the mirror, it was all slick and cool. I got a little fuzzified somewhere along the way. That's okay. I kind of like it, though. Kind of like it. All right. Let's see. It's been a bit of a flashback to my high school days. All right. Hey, how's your mental health doing today, kids and cubs? I am doing okay. I'm doing okay. This morning was a little rough. Waking up, got to bed at a regular time, but I'm still a little tired. I mean, 5 days insomnia, it kind of catches up with you. So even though I got to bed at a regular time and slept pretty much well throughout the night and had no trouble falling asleep, unlike yesterday morning when I woke up and I felt refreshed, I did not feel refreshed today. Yeah, it was the alarm rang and then 20 minutes just kind of disappeared. I don't know exactly where. I was kind of sitting in the same position I was when I woke up and nothing had really happened. So I don't know. I just like the alarm clock rang. I sat up and then zoned out for 20 minutes. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess I should start doing something. So It took me a little longer to get started today. No, I wanted to roll over and go back to bed. just just 20 more minutes, please. Ah, well, I'm up, and here we are together for our morning rendezvous. I'm feeling good though. I'm feeling good. I'm a little tired, but I am feeling good. I think just the events of the last little while have caught up to me, and this is my last day off before we go. I think Saturday we're in rehearsal. I think 1 p.m. till 10 p.m. And I saw our schedule, and we only have 1/2 hour break somewhere and all of that, and I don't think that that's going to do. We might need to ask for a little bit more there. Then Sunday, not as long a day, but still, I think we start a little later, maybe around 2 or 3, but we're still going till about 10 or something. And then we have rehearsals Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday's dress rehearsal. And then we start on our first series of 6 shows. So, yeah, for the next 9 days, I think it is, we have something absolutely every single day, which is, this is really the rough week where I have absolutely no life of my own. um, I'm warning you now, kits and cubs, the quality of the show may suffer a little this week, because I may not have a lot of prep time to put some stuff together, and sleep will be at a premium. But I will do my best to try to keep as regular a schedule as possible during next week. But just a pre programming note that might be a significantly tougher challenge, particularly since I will not have my Beaver sweetie with me. Normally, when I do a show, we sort of have this understanding that the last 2 weeks before show, and particularly the last week, I am basically useless around the house, and I need a lot of assistance in terms of meals being, cooked and prepared, and a whole bunch of stuff like that, and somebody to take care of laundry and all of that kind of stuff, because the life is just show, 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 show. And I am not going to have that assistance this time because my Beaver sweetie leaves tomorrow for this conference. Yeah, not tomorrow, sorry, mistaken, Sunday for the conference, because tonight is his dress rehearsal for his big concert, and then tomorrow the big concert, which I don't get to see because I'm at the theater all evening long. So I'm going to go to his dress rehearsal tonight so that I can at least hear what it is that he has been working on as close to the show as possible. It's a little disappointing, though. I like to go to absolutely everything he does, and it's this. I think this is the only the second time in the 13 years we've been together that I've had to miss one of his shows because I had a conflicting one. Um, so, 'tis the season, though, right, for a holiday affair, however, so people are really getting into it, and the calendars are getting crowded around this time of year, and particularly up until about mid-December with cultural type stuff and presentations. So, yeah, it's just the way the cookie bounces sometimes. The various artistic pursuits and professional pursuits conflict. So we try to support each other as best we can. Maybe Versuti will be able to come and see our show, but it will be in the second week, and so there'll be no celebrations at home after opening night with my Beaver sweetie. But he will be out there saving the world with science. So I mean, I can't be that selfish now, can I? Well, I can, but I won't. All right, kids and cubs. You know what? We haven't done a little check here in the Magic Monitor for the last couple of days. So let's see who we have with us this morning. We have Kit Uncover and Kit Elaine with us. We have Kit Hyper T007 saying, Bom dia, Castorzinos, que lindo nacer do sol esta manhã. And I'm going to guess that means good morning, little beavers. What a beautiful sun there. What, yeah, what beautiful sun there is this morning. I'm not sure what nacer is, but I think that's the overall gist. Kit Uncovered with the beaver joke of the day. What did Beaver say after a long day of rehearsing? I'm ready to log off for the night. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. Uh, I'm. If it weren't for the fact that I love you so much, Dan Fam, I'd be ready to log off now. Ah, all right. We have Kit Miss with us. I hope the whole family is doing well, as are you. We have as well in the chat Kit Wishful, hey, good morning to you. Nice to see you with us today. Kit Nona Carol, Kit Bucky is with us as well. And we have Kit Tabby G. We have Kit James joining us. I haven't seen you in a little while. Nice to see you again here at the Beaver Lodge. Thank you for joining us this morning. We often get to extra people on Fridays, and that's always wonderful to see people, especially if you haven't seen their name for a little bit. Kit Linda M reminding us that at the FIFA Under 17 World Cup, our Canadian young men will be playing Ireland this morning at 10:15 Eastern Time in the round of 32, so first round of playoffs. And go Canada, go! Canadian women reached the round of 16 before they had to face Brazil, which is always a tough task. So let's see if the men can do as well as our young Canadian women. Canada, where the women are strong and the men are pretty. Who else do we have? We have Kit Ild today with us saying, good morning, happy Friday. It is indeed a happy Friday. Who else do we have with us in the chat? We have Kit Grace is here. Hey, nice to see you. Kit Kat is with us. Kit Argosi Acres is also with us. Kit Jenny is also here. Good morning to you. Kit Mayhem, hey. Lovely to see you. Haven't seen your name in our chat for a little while. Glad you're back. Who else? We have Kit PNC Bio with us, and always a joy to have him here. So nice to see you. Always look forward to your commentary. Kit Toronto Dan is here. Um, Apologizing for not being able to make it at the pubcast on the first. That's okay. Life happens, my friend. Life happens, my friend. Hopefully, we will have one. I haven't ran it by Mr. Grizzly, but I'm aiming for December 6th because I have to be in the nation's capital on the 4th anyway, and maybe I can do double duty and put it all in one trip. So put it in pencil on your calendars, the next pubcast or Christmas pubcast for December 6th, and I will confirm with you after I speak to Mr. Grizzly. But that's sort of my long-term plan for the moment. Okay, who else do we have here in the chat? That is everyone this morning. So thank you so much. Nasser, yeah, maybe sunrise. Yes, exactly. Good point, Bucky. That's what I was thinking too. Nascent, but I was like, yeah, I thought emerging sun, and I should have thought emerging sun would be sunrise. That's yep. That would make sense. It's a beautiful sunrise this morning. Would make a lot of sense, especially considering the hour. Um, Well, there you go. Get Hyper T 007 right in time. So in Portuguese, sunrise literally means the birth of the sun. So nascer. There you go. There we see when we rub a couple of gray brain cells together, we get a spark. So see, Bucky took his gray brain cells and then rubbed them up against mine, and then poof. We see together we can figure it out. And it seems that you were indeed correct, sir. So good thinking. I often do that. I'm looking there and I'm trying to think, is there a word in French that I know that's somewhat similar? And and then try to go from there and cross my fingers. And when I go the other way around, it's not so much Portuguese because I don't know anything really other than obrigado. But when I try Spanish, if though the word is not coming to me, or if I can't figure it out, or I don't know it, I take the word in French and I try to add an a or an o at the end and cross my fingers. And does that work? You'd be surprised the number of times it actually does, but not all the time. Far from all the time. Okay, let's see. let's get into it, kits and cubs. There's a lot to talk about today. Um, Mostly with the Prime Minister, of course, with the major projects, and we will get into that. But we have, since we were talking a little bit earlier about the Grey Cup, there's a little bit uh, going on that we can talk about here, thanks to the buzzer by CBC Sports, I should say. Um, Oh, we are getting so close to the Winter Olympics. I'm so excited. Um, According to the buzzer at CBC, um, injured Alouettes quarterback David Alexander did practice, and his status is still questionable, I guess, at the moment. But because he hurt his hamstring in the fourth quarter of Montreal's victory, 1916 victory over Hamilton in the East Final. But he was reportedly seen dropping back, throwing, and jogging on the field at the practice on Wednesday in Winnipeg, or Tuesday. Alexander has vowed to be in the starting lineup for the Grey Cup, but the injury could limit his effectiveness. Alexander's health is vital to the Owls, who are 13-0 with him as their starter over the last 2 seasons, including a pair of playoff victories this month. Alexander went 7-0 in the regular season this year, but his dodgy hamstring led to 2 stints on the injured list, and Montreal was 3-8, 3 wins and 8 losses in the games he did not start. So it seems to be a rather critical player here for the Owls. And then in here as well, of course, for those who want to watch, the championship game will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Time in Winnipeg. So for those of you who are in the East, I don't know why they give us Eastern Time in Winnipeg. Okay, if we're matching Winnipeg, they should give us the local time and then let us figure it out. But yes, if you're in the Eastern Time Zone, it will be at 6 p.m. And it seems that as Mr. Grizzly picked Saskatchewan and go all the way, and it seems that the Rough Riders are favored. They haven't won a championship since 2013, which is kind of hard to believe because they're mm, they're a very good team usually. So I'm surprised it's been that long. Um, but that's the last time they played for a Grey Cup, so they haven't even been in a final since 2013. I just find that surprising as a number. Um, yeah, okay, that's what it says here. 12 years may not sound like much, but that's a pretty long dry spell in a 9-team league. The BC Lions are the only other club that haven't played in the title game since the Riders' last appearance. In the meantime, things were a little rough for the Riders. They had an overall regular season of 83-92, record of 83-92, and just 3 playoff wins in the 10 seasons from 2014 to 2024. The 2020 season, of course, being canceled due to COVID. This year, though, Saskatchewan has been the CFL's top team from the get-go. They raced out to a 4-0 start and ran their record to 8-1 before finishing a league best 12-6, following 2 meaningless losses close to the regular season uh, after they had clinched the West Division title. So I'm going to go close to the regular season end, and that word is just missing from the article here. After enjoying a first-round playoff bye, Saskatchewan rallied to beat the visiting BC Lions 23-24 in a thrilling West final, trailing 21-17 with just 63 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. Quarterback Trevor Harris drove the Riders 74 yards in 7 plays for the game-winning touchdown on a 3-yard pass to Canadian receiver Tommy Neild with 11 seconds left. Wow, that must have been exciting indeed. I'm sorry I missed that, actually. Now it's up to Harris and company to deliver a rare and much deserved championship to the passionate, watermelon-hatted fans of Saskatchewan. Their team has won just 4 of the 111 Grey Cup games to date, while losing 15 of them for an abysmal .211 winning percentage. But the Riders are favored by a healthy 4 points on Sunday, applying applying about a 2 in 3 chance of victory. See, again, I'm not a big follower of the big four sports regularly, uh, but just how passionate Saskatchewan fans are for their team. I would have gone to my grave swearing that the Saskatchewan Roughriders have won way more than just 4 Grey Cups in 111 years. I thought they were double digits for sure. See? Just goes to show what I know. Um, Alouette fans can relate to the Riders' pain. They went 13 years between Grey Cup appearances before their team won it in 2023 by upsetting heavily favored Winnipeg. I am having trouble talking today. This season, Montreal went 10-8 to finish second in the East. Then they dealt the Blue Bombers another crushing blow in the playoffs, outgunning them 42-33 to quash Winnipeg's hopes of reaching a record-tying sixth consecutive Grey Cup game last weekend. The Owls marched into Hamilton for the East and upset the first-place Tiger Cats 19-16 on a walk-off 45-yard field goal by Jose Matos Diaz. With that win, Montreal quarterback David Alexander improved to 13-0 as a starter in the CFL, as we just mentioned, including their two playoff victories. The Owls are 9-0 with him in the lineup this year, but a bulky left hamstring caused Alexander to miss 11 games, and Montreal went 3-8, as we mentioned, with the 37-year-old journeyman McLeod Bethel-Thompson as their primary backup. Unfortunately, Alexander re-aggravated that hamstring on a drive-ending tackle during the fourth quarter of last Saturday's East Final. He did not miss any plays after the Owls regained possession, and he led the 7-play, 37-yard drive that resulted in Maltos Diaz's game-winning kick. But head coach Jason Maas admitted his star quarterback will not be fully healthy for the Grey Cup, even though Maas and Alexander both promise he'll start after a week of rehab work on the hammy. Encouragingly, Alexander took part in the Riders' first practice on Wednesday, though the team listed him as a limited participant. And then the Buzzer article goes on to say, no disrespect to these two offenses, which are both dotted with good players. For Saskatchewan, Harris ranked third in the CFL in passing yards, trailing only Hamilton's Bo Levi Mitchell and BC's Nathan Rourke, the two finalists for the league's most outstanding player award, and finished second to Rourke in passer rating. AJ Ouellette placed second in rushing yards and ran for 113 on 17 carries in the West Final. Star receiver Keeson Johnson made 86 catches for 1,159 yards, which ranked fourth in the league despite his missing the last two games with a knee injury that also kept him out of the West Final. Johnson was on the field for the early portion of Wednesday's practice, but he was officially listed as a non-participant, putting his status for the Grey Cup in the air. For Montreal, Alexander's two stints on the injured list pushed him down the leaderboard in the counting stats like passing yards and touchdowns, but he tied Harris for second place in passer rating, and in the 7 games where he was active, threw for 10 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions, a stellar ratio. Alexander's favorite target, Tyler Snead, was close to the Riders' Johnson with 84 catches for 1,129 yards. But as a whole, neither of these offenses exactly blew the doors off their opponents. Saskatchewan tied for fourth among the 9 teams in offensive points scored, while Montreal was sixth in average yards gained per play. They were third and seventh respectively, though Alexander's 11 missed games are dragged on the Owls' numbers. And that just goes to show you don't necessarily have to score a lot of points just in the season. You just have to score the right points at the right time to get the wins. If we accept the premise that Alexander's presence and Johnson's potential absence brings these two offenses closer to a wash, then the Grey Cup might come down to who has the better defense. The Riders' D was better at preventing scoring this season, ranking third in average points by the opposing offense at 22.7 per game, and they were second in interceptions with cornerback Trevon Campbell snagging 6 of them to tie for the league lead. In the West Final, Saskatchewan held Rourke and the Lions' top-rated offense to just 21 points, 9 fewer than the average in the regular season. Montreal's D was just behind the Riders in average points surrendered at 22.8 before holding Hamilton, the league's number 2 scoring offense, to only 16 points in the East Final, 11 points below the Ticats' regular season average on offense. In terms of net yards allowed, Montreal had the stingiest defense in the league this season, with Saskatchewan right behind in second, but the Alouettes really set themselves apart in the more advanced metric of yards per play allowed. Their mark of 6.02 was more than a third of a yard better than the second place BC and well ahead of the fifth place Saskatchewan's at 6.65. Anchored by linebackers Daryl Sankey, third in the league in tackles, and Tyrese Beverett? Too bad it wasn't Beaveret. Tyrese Beverett, 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, and lineman Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, a finalist for Most Outstanding Canadian after notching 11 sacks. Montreal's D has the power to wreck any game. The formula has worked well for Grey Cup underdogs in recent years, including the Alouettes themselves in 2023 when they upset Toronto in the East Final with 5 takeaways, plus another 4 turnovers on downs, before winning the Grey Cup as 8-point dogs against Winnipeg. Last year, Toronto had 4 interceptions and a fumble recovery to hand the Blue Bombers another shocking defeat in the title game. Will defense deliver another Grey Cup championship? We'll find out Sunday night in Winnipeg. Ooh, left us with a little teaser. I like that. I like that. So yeah, kids and cubs. Uh, hope you will have your snacks and you will have some friends or family together, and that the game will be a wonderful affair. I hope it will be a good display of defense, a good contest with as is often the case in Grey Cups, very tight games with it coming it down to the wire for a very exciting finish. Um, our our game tends to lend itself to it. So I'm going to hope that for everyone who will be tuning in and watching and bonding with friends and family and all of that good stuff. I was going to say I would tune in to watch. I hope that I will be back home from rehearsal on. No, I will not in time to watch. Darn, I'm going to have to watch it on delay or have it on my phone and try to sneak some watches of it while we are rehearsing. Although I have a feeling that if that is in the evening, I might we might be doing a full run at that time, 6 p.m. Might I might be able to catch the first hour before we start doing a full run. I think we start doing that at 7. So I might be able to catch the first hour during supper and then save the rest until we're done. I'm excited. I don't really follow. If there's one of the four of the sports that I do follow from time to time, it is indeed the CFL. I've gone to see a couple of games live in my lifetime, and it's always been an absolute wonderful time. But I'm not. I'm just not. Yeah, the sports that I prefer following are more the Olympic ones. So I don't really know that much about the baseball and the basketball and the soccer and the hockey, all that kind of stuff in terms of the regular season. But and of all of them, the ones I tend to know a little bit more about end up being hockey and soccer, and not because I follow soccer, just because they do happen to also be Olympic sports. So every now and then, you get to tune in on the players when they start talking about picking the rosters, and when it's at the Olympics, I watch every match that Canada is involved in because, you know, I may not be the world's biggest regular season Big Four sports fans, but when they slap Canada on the jersey, I am there. I'm there. All right. Let's get into the more political stuff now that we've dealt with the fun. Yesterday, the Prime Minister of Canada was in Terrace, British Columbia, to announce a second series of so called major projects of national interest, projects that are key, according to the Prime Minister, or that will be key to growing Canada's economy and helping us to reorient ourselves to the more global markets, so a little bit more away from the United States and more towards the world. Now, of course, as we keep on saying that, moving away from the United States, of course, does not mean that we are seeking to cease trade or divert all of our trade away from the United States, but to have as big a portion of our trade as we can with nations that are not the United States and probably also not China and India, though we will have to diversify with them as well, so that when ever one of the big superpowers decide that they are going to toy with us or try to flick us across the table like we're a lint ball, that we have a little bit of buffer and that they are limited in the amount of damage that they can do to us. Because, well, we've decided that we are going to make lots of friends and actually maintain those relationships. So, yeah, these are important, of course, because it lets us know we are where we are going. Of course, it lets us know, gives us a better idea of what the overall plan is when we see which projects are selected and which are going forward. One of the things that was very important yesterday, I don't know, I'm gonna guess, They were stressing this because it hadn't been actually stressed before, even though it was always sort of known. But there seemed to be a sense within the government that they needed to stress this yesterday, that the fact that a project gets the tap on the shoulder to be sent to the major projects office does not necessarily mean that that project is guaranteed to take place. It means that it gets guaranteed to get some help to fast track the project through whatever remains of the approval process, and maybe to try to find some ways to secure funding for it to happen. Um, but you can get to that part, and then realize still after trying to do this final push work that either the project's not going to happen or that the financing is not there and the project doesn't happen. With that said, however, um, the caveat to the caveat is that the projects that are selected to go to the major projects office for this final phase of assistance, if they're closer to the end or if they're closer to the beginning, like the Pathways projects, to really uh, get some concerted attention behind them to move them faster through the whole development phase as well. The projects that are selected for that are projects that there are preconditions for those as well. And one of them is a project that has some very high likelihood of success. And in that case, one would suspect that the overwhelming majority of these projects, not all of them, would eventually get the green light to go ahead. Uh, there's no point in doing all of this if they're not, you know, I would say probably 80% sure, at least at this stage of going through. It would have to take something rather um, significant to upend a project, is what I would assume given this, because, they're the projects that are picked at this phase are not just picked willy-nilly here. Um, but there seemed to be a lot of emphasis on that particular point yesterday. So I figured I would highlight it there. Um, the Prime Minister has indicated that his objective with these types of projects, as we mentioned yesterday, it's a living list. It's not one and done. Things will come off. Things will go on the list as projects, you know, move around and are in various phases of approval or development as different provinces suggest some and all that, and territories and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a living list. Uh, but the overall objective, it appears, from the prime minister is to try to generate $1 trillion worth of investment overall through these types of projects. Um, I'm going to guess within 5 years or so. Um, so that, I think that's the objective, or at least have a number of projects uh, that are going to the office that have a total value of worth $1 trillion in terms of potential investment that they could attract. So with the first series of projects, uh, he had brought the total to about, then these, of course, according to him, to about $60 billion. And in this case, this series of projects will add about another 55 billion. So we're at 115 billion and counting uh, towards his goal of $1 trillion in these types of projects. So again, you know, there are no shovels in the ground right now, really, except for particularly maybe not shovels in the ground even, but like the Darlington one is the one that's the most further ahead, because they just announced, $2 billion to go and support it in additional, and that's in the first one. Probably the port in Montreal, the expansion of the port in Montreal is probably another one, and probably one of the ones that'll be finished earliest that they could point to and say, see, because I believe. Um, plans for that had already been drawn up and whatnot, and it's just got to okay for the final hurdles and that type of stuff, and that there's probably some preparatory work. Uh, I would assume that's already started down on that one. And other ones, of course, will take a significant more time, and then other ones yet, like for example, pathways will probably take even a significantly more time at that point. But as we mentioned, the goal is to try and, I would guess, ladder some of these projects so that there are things to point to, especially in the early phases, right? Because, like I said, it's nice to announce the projects, and of course, when you announce projects, yes, there is some work that starts, right? There's consultation work. That is work, but I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not boots on the ground type work that gets down, you know, to uh, Joe and Jane Canadian, for lack of a better term. But that does generate economic activity as well, right? If you're drawing up plans and the architects and all of that kind of stuff, that's there. You're coming up with new processes, the engineering that goes into that. There's economic activity in there, so there's lots of economic activity before shovels get to the ground with these types of projects as well. But when you're a government and you're saying big projects, right? When the big visual that gets a lot of attention is that ribbon cutting and that that backhoe coming in and taking out that first chunk of earth and those types of stuff. And when things start to be built and you can point and see it's happening. Um, and usually between the time that a project is announced and the project gets to that point, there could be up to 2 years. So the prime minister's really difficult part is the first 2 years when he's announcing these projects and stuff is happening and there's consultations and there's preparatory work and plans are being drawn and you know um, uh, building plans are being drafted and concepts are being devised, machinery is being thought of and conceptualized, but not purchased yet, right? Manufacturing lines are being um, again, conceptualized, but not, you don't see anything yet, other than maybe like, again, a plan on paper. Um, but there's a lot of work that does go into these portions as well. But that those first 2 years, there's maybe not a lot to point to. So that gives opposition parties a lot of runway to criticize, talk about delays, talk about government not really being serious, and all the things that you can do to try to diminish a project and talk it down before somebody has something to point to. So that's why I was a little disappointed that the result of the election initially was a minority parliament, because it didn't give the prime minister the first full 4 years for him to get some stuff off the ground and say, well, after 4 years, look, see, there's shovels in the ground here. We've laid the first spike for the high-speed rail for the first section between, let's say, Ottawa and Montreal. We didn't, there's actual things that he can point to and activity that has started. So, and if the government, somebody tries to make the government fall within the first 2 years, well, before there's something like that you can point to. That is the major portion of vulnerability here for the federal government. And then the second portion of vulnerability, of course, is that if in the process of getting some of those first few projects on the way, underway, there is some type of disturbance in the project. Like, for example, one of the projects that was announced yesterday, there does seem to be some Indigenous opposition to it from certain quarters, even though it is an Indigenous-led project. Um, and there are people that are already talking about going to court on some of them, and of course that could lead to some delays that are not necessarily expected or desired. And again, if that delays the moment at which you can point to something and say, "See, we've started," that also gives ground for the opposition. So that's the major area of vulnerability for the federal government when it comes to these types of projects. So hopefully these things are being very well done, especially in the first projects with consultations, in order to minimize the risk of such things derailing the point at which you can have some type of deliverable that's tangible that you can point to prove to the Canadian public that that which the opposition is saying is not necessarily tethered to observable reality. So, moving forward with that, let's go to the Prime Minister's announcement yesterday about the projects. And he's, as you know, the Prime Minister has particular skill at explaining these types of projects, of course, because, well, I mean, you know, given his background, he is how would I say it? Given his background, he's very used to speaking in these terms. So this is, how would I put it, comfortable terrain for the prime minister. No doubt about that. There is one thing, however, that is very, very key to remember, and I think it was Bill Kelly. For those of you who follow him, I have a lot of respect for that man. Um, Pointed this out when he was, and this is a few weeks ago when he was talking about this type of stuff. Um, he was pointing out that when it comes to the prime minister, um, the word investment has a very different definition for him as it does for many other people. In government, maybe around the time of Stephen Harper, if I am not mistaken, um, investment in regular political plans um, became a substitute or a synonym for the word spending, which had become unpopular. So, we'll be spending on this, or we'll be spending this much money, we'll be spending, and then turns around and says, we'll be investing this money in this, we'll be investing money in this. Um, and it's just been used interchangeable. But Mark Carney is a central banker and someone that's worked in the business world where the word investment has a particular meaning. So I am going to, if I think this is for the first time on our show, that we are actually going to show you a clip of actual Mr. Bill Kelly. But I wanted to put this here because it was a point that was always sort of like in the back of my head, but I had never said out loud and I had never heard anybody actually articulate. And Mr. Kelly does it very well here.
Economy back on track. And it's going to take time. There's a commercial. I can't even remember which investment firm it was, but it seemed like every 10 minutes during the World Series about investments. And remember, there was a graph that kept showing going up and up and up. And I thought they were showing like how the Blue Jays have been improving, but it was about investment. They said, good things take time to develop. Well, that's basically, I think, the subtext of what Carney is doing here. They've got a plan that have so far been getting a thumbs up, at least a genial thumbs up anyway, from a lot of the business leaders to get through this. And they understand. And as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, the message now seems to be, look, this guy gets it. And it's not something, that we can just flick a switch and all of a sudden we're going to go from, concern to a great economy where everybody lives happily ever after. It's going to take some time and it's going to take some tough decisions. There are some programs that may have to be cut, some programs that may have to be reduced, but that's part of the process. And there are going to be people that are going to be pissed off about that. Well, that's part of the process. And there is a bit of a trickle down to this. We get that. But you can't run this business. You can't run this country the way that some governments have tried to. The Poilievre's idea and conservative ideas in the past has been, let's look after the wealthy people. They get the tax breaks. They get the tax situations. Keep your foreign investments. Now, keep your bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. As long as you're happy and fruitful, you'll stay here. and invest here. Well, they're not investing here. First of all, the numbers show that they're hanging on to their money. They're not reinvesting it into Canada. We have to change that around. But we have to look after everyone else. There is no such thing as trickle down. The only thing that gets trickled down here is the grief. Because if you don't look after everybody, you're looking after nobody. And that's one of the realities I think they're going to be facing here. So it's an important budget for that very reason. But as we said at the outset here, and I want to reiterate this, don't listen to all the doom and gloom. And nobody, including me, is looking at this with rose-colored glasses and saying, oh, everything's going to be fine. No, there's going to be some tough times here. And I'm probably going to come on to future podcasts and complain about some of the cuts they're going to make and some of the programs that may not be as effective. But we have to understand what's happening here, okay? And how many examples and how many analogies have we used here? Now, if your doctor says that, hey, you have to lose 50 pounds, there is no miracle pill that you can take, okay, that's going to help. I don't care what the commercials say. There's no injection that you're going to take that's make the pounds just fall away and you're going to be healthy in 6 weeks. That doesn't happen. It takes commitment and hard work. And we know that. And it's going to be the same thing with our economy. It's going to take some hard work, and it's going to take some there's some things that you're going to have to do without. Now, if you're trying to go back to that analogy, if you want to lose 50 pounds, lay off the shortcake, lay off the chocolate cake, lay off the French fries. You can't have it both ways. And we in this country have been trying to have it both ways for far too long.
So there you go. I'm not sure if the portion about investment that I was mentioning was included in that. I guess I did not have the correct timestamp in here. There might have been an editing to the video from the time I saw it that changed the timestamps there. But still, some good commentary about Mr. Kelly here about, as I mentioned, that the need that these types of projects definitely take time, and that there is a certain amount of patience that is going to be required if we want to make sure that we get the full benefit of this, or that we don't crush this push in the middle of it. Don't kill the chick in the egg, so to speak. So we want to be careful of that, to temper our expectations, so that we don't let the disappointment of things not being happening fast enough lose faith that they can happen at all. So I will keep on looking and try to hopefully find the specific portion about investment that I was looking for in that, because this is what I'm guessing here. There was an edit and some timestamps must have shifted. That happens to me sometimes, also with the CPAC material, which it did last night. I had to go back and find all my timestamps again this morning, because I'd took everything from the live, and then everything that was in the live that was that had nothing happening got cut out, and then all of a sudden all the timestamps are shifted. And it's like, crap. But let's go to the Prime Minister here, making the announcement. And we are going to start with something that he is saying close to the introduction of it, that I like, because it also gives us some elements of a counterfactual. So when I'm hearing people argue against stuff like, for example, Pierre, was talking about the $78 billion deficit, and it's terrible, and it's inflationary, and it means the Liberals are going to print money because it's government spending, and government spending is always necessarily inflationary, and none of this is true. But Pierre says it anyway. Pierre never talks about, nobody seems to ask him, okay, but do you not agree that we need to reorient our economy? To which Pierre would have to say yes, because during the entire election, he complained about the Liberals having made us dependent on the United States. Like this happened all in the last 10 years. It was all the fault of Justin Trudeau, not the fault of every single successive government since in my entire lifetime. So I mean, if you're complaining that we are too reliant on the United States, well, then surely you must have a plan to diversify, or you must think that we should diversify. So if you think we should diversify, which of the things that we are doing would you not do in order to keep that deficit at $42 billion? Would you not build the port? Would you not do nuclear? Would you not do critical minerals? Which would you not do? And if you would do them all, because, well, then if the deficit reported is 78 and you want it at 42 maximum, where are you going to find the additional $36 billion in cuts and savings in addition to the 60 that have already been announced? And what would they be? Right? Would you not do defense? Would you not do 2% of GDP on NATO? Would you still keep on, raising the ire of the United States on that? Would you not do the 5%? Would you not have committed to that? And if you would, well, then whatever the value of our money that we have to spend on those things, where would you find the cuts for those two? Right? Nobody's asking Pierre about the trade-offs, and nobody's asking Pierre, well, okay, you're upset that we are spending this extra $36 billion this year. What would you not, if you didn't spend it, what would the economy be? If you didn't spend it on these things, if you just decided not to spend it at all, what would the situation be? So the Prime Minister here is giving us a little bit of data as to the impact of what the United States is doing to us with its recent moves. And that it's always important to keep that in mind whenever you hear Pierre talking about it.
We're in a situation because of all these changes in the world that many of our historic strengths, based on close ties with the United States, have become our vulnerabilities. We just released a budget last week. And in that budget, we estimate that the U.S. tariffs and the associated uncertainty that they're causing will cost the Canadian people about 1.8% of our GDP. Now, let me translate that into real numbers. That's about $50 billion lost from our economy. It's the equivalent of $1,300 for every woman, man, and child in this country. That's because the world, U.S., is changing rapidly. And so we must change our strategy dramatically.
So some important data in there. Pierre Poilievre, you will never hear him talk about the fact that what the United States is doing to us when he turns around and says, Mark Carney promised that we would have the fastest growing economy in the world. We have the slowest growing in the G7, blah, 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 whatever, that kind of stuff. Again, none of that is true. But Pierre Poilievre says, well, if you're complaining about we're spending this money to address that, then what would you do to shore up the 1.8% of our GDP that just got, its block knocked off by what the United States has attempted to do to us? Would you just sit there and let that happen? Right? He talks about, investment that goes elsewhere. So he claims. But he never talks about the $50 billion of economic activity that just took a hit. How would he replace that? How would he replace that equivalent of $1,300 for every man, woman, and child in Canada that has just taken a hit by what Donald Trump has done? Pierre doesn't really have a plan for that. He's just complaining about the other person having a plan and that the plan costs money. It's like if there's a problem and you don't want to invest any money to fix the problem, then how do you address the shortfalls created by the problem? And Pierre will never, ever, 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 ever talk about that. The other little piece of data point that the Prime Minister gave us was the one pertaining to how much economic investment that this new series, latest series of 6 projects, could help help us attract.
One of the first things that Canada's new government did was to pass something called the Building Canada Act. That was back in June. And this law changes the government's approach to building major projects from why to how. Those projects are projects that strengthen Canada's autonomy, our independence, strengthen our resilience, strengthen our security. They're projects that provide major economic benefits to Canadians, ones that have a high likelihood of success. Crucially, they are projects that advance the interests of Indigenous peoples. And they have to be projects that contribute to sustainable, clean growth. And the Major Projects Office is helping to build Canada smarter and quicker, fast-tracking infrastructure that we need to unlock our country's immense resources and potential. And in this way, we'll build our communities, grow new businesses, and create tens of thousands of new careers in sustainable industries. Back in September, in Edmonton, we referred projects that represent more than $60 billion in investment. And today, we're going to announce some projects that will double that impact.
So, close to double that impact. We're talking about projects here that are going to about generate another 55 billion. So we're at about 115 billion total here with the 12 projects announced to date, if you add the first series to the second series here. Another little tidbit here is with regard to the number I mentioned earlier, stated by the government that it was seeking to attract about $1 trillion of such investment over the next short period of time. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, over the next 5 years.
In other words, these projects that we're catalyzing, $1 trillion of investment in total over the next 5 years. That's $3,500 for every Canadian worker, twice what the Americans are taking away.
So basically, with the Prime Minister here, those 3 data points that I just brought to you, what the Prime Minister stating here, comes down to say that in order to absorb the shock of the 1.8% hit to our GDP that is being caused by what the United States has already done, which represents $50 billion out of our economy, or the equivalent of $1,300 for every man, woman, and child. We are responding with major projects so far, first series and second series of projects that can generate up to $115 billion worth of investment. So more than has been taken away already. As the Prime Minister keeps on saying, we can give ourselves more than anybody else can take away. And we're going to continue down this path in such a way that we can generate projects that could result in $1 trillion of investment into Canada over the next 5 years, which would represent $3,500 for every Canadian worker. Now, I wish he had kept the same metric on both, how much that would be for every man, woman, and child, so that we can compare, apples to apples here, because not every man, woman, and child is a Canadian worker. So for ease of communication, I wish that when comparison, I wish that would have been done. But because we can't say now with the data as presented, for every $1,300 that the United States has taken away, by the time we're done with this, we will have generated $3,500 more for every Canadian. This is for every Canadian worker. So it would be nice to have a common denominator to drive that argument home. But it still seems to be a relatively impressive number, because that may be that 3,500 for every Canadian worker could maybe, when you translate it down, I heard this is me like taking little pieces of stuff and trying to piece them together, but it would give me the impression, based on what I heard, that it would be close to double 1,300 for every man and woman and child. So maybe 3,500 for every worker, but 2,600 for every man, woman, and child. Around there, or 2,500, somewhere around there. But don't quote me on that number. That's me doing a lot of work, taking stuff from one part of this piece of the speech and another part and try to push it together to try and create an image. But it's not two pieces of data that the Prime Minister actually explicitly put on the table and said it will be this. So that one is just sort of my best guess based on the entire content of the speech. The Prime Minister then gets in to talking about the various types of projects that we are talking about. So he's talking about projects that create new trade and economic corridors to diversify our economy, that maximize our potential as an energy superpower, projects that help build our leadership in critical minerals, and projects he mentions there. You will hear about data sovereignty. However, it seems that we're not, we probably won't get a lot of details about those types of projects because there's a level of secrecy there that's very important. And then, so he will talk about these overall types of projects that he's trying to attract, and then we'll start to go in to some of the projects that have stuff to do or that relate to us becoming that energy superpower that he's talking about. And in this case, there are two projects. There's the Xylismus or Limes. I'd have to, oh darn it, I made a point to try to remember it on the off the top of my head, and Keelism's LNG project. There it is. And as well, the Iqaluit Hydro project are the two energy ones in this one that he's going to talk a little bit about. So this passage is a little bit longer, but hopefully very informative as to this is the meat of the announcement that we're getting into here.
Each of the projects that we're referring to, the major projects office today, in and of itself is transformational. But the bigger point is that their impacts will be amplified by being part of bigger national strategies to boost Canada's competitiveness, including to realize our country's full potential as an energy superpower, by creating new trade and economic corridors that diversify our economy, projects that help build Canada's leadership in critical minerals to increase our independence, and also projects that we won't discuss today, but projects that establish our data sovereignty so Canadians can be served safely and securely online. Now, Canada, let me start with our position as an energy superpower. We're starting to realize our full potential in both conventional, i.e. oil and gas, and clean energies. LNG is an essential fuel for the energy transition. LNG can help Canada build new trading relationships, especially in fast-growing markets in Asia. By 2040, it's estimated the global LNG demand will rise by 60%, and Canada will be ready. We're home to the world's fourth largest reserves of natural gas, and we have the potential to supply up to 100 million tons annually of new LNG exports to Asia. But that will require major investment across a wide range of infrastructure. And to encourage that investment, the budget provides new tax incentives to encourage the world's lowest carbon, I'll repeat, the world's lowest carbon LNG facilities. And the budget also expands the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's ability to support projects like Xylism's LNG. Xylism comprises a new gas pipeline, a new electricity transmission line, and a new floating LNG export facility. Led by the Nisga'a Nation under President Ava Clayton, Xylism's will become Canada's second largest LNG facility, with a capacity to export 12 million tons of LNG every year to new markets. It'll also be one of the world's cleanest LNG operations, with emissions an incredible 94% below the global average and with the potential to reach net zero by the end of this decade, all while creating thousands of skilled careers and $4 billion contributions annually to our GDP. The federal government has been working closely with the province of British Columbia in the development of this project, most notably through a one project, one review environmental assessment process and associated consultations led by the province. In addition to consulting on the financing of Silissum, the Major Project Office will also help coordinate timely approvals of all three elements of the project and the related transmission infrastructure that I'll discuss in a moment. Now, more broadly, taking a step back from LNG, core to becoming an energy superpower will be to fully capitalize on Canada's advantage in clean energy by substantially expanding our clean electricity grid. Over 80% of the electric power we produce in the country, it's higher obviously in British Columbia, but in the country as a whole, is clean. The point is, clean electrification is the path. It's the only path to building a sustainable, prosperous economy. D'ici 2050, nos besoins en électricité pourraient tripler due à la croissance économique et à l'augmentation de la demande pour les transports propres.
So here he's talking about our electrical needs will probably triple over the next bit of time as demands increase for what it is that we do and for things like data centers and stuff of the like.
Au processus industriel vert et au centre de données.
And also for green industrial processes.
Et pour répondre à cette demande, nous aurons besoin davantage de capacités hydroélectriques, solaires, éoliennes et nucléaires.
So we will need additional nuclear, solar, and wind energy in order to be able to meet that demand.
Et nous aurons besoin de nouvelles interconnexions entre les systèmes provinciaux pour créer un réseau énergétique canadien efficace, robuste et durable.
And we'll need different interconnections in order to create an overall electrical grid that will be reliable and durable.
We can unlock enormous economic opportunities by connecting and creating a sustainable grid, including right here in northern British Columbia. So our government is launching a transformational strategy to develop that clean energy, including through new investment tax credits for clean electricity, through something we just introduced in the budget called the Productivity Superdeduction, which provides for immediate expensing of clean electricity generation and conservation equipment. The Canadian Infrastructure Bank plans to invest $10 billion in clean power projects, and there will be federal support for provincial transmission links. We also see that nuclear power will play an important role in scaling clean generation. And the Minister of Natural Resources will lead our new nuclear strategy, working with the provinces, including the Government of Ontario, to deploy small modular reactors and tens of gigawatts of new utility-scale nuclear capacity. Canada, of course you know this in BC, Canada has a long tradition of using hydropower to unlock economic activity. That's true here, it's true in Quebec with Hydro-Quebec, it's true even in my home province of Alberta with the Brazeau Dam, which was the start of our industrial development. In that spirit, today we're referring the Iqaluit Nuqiqsutit hydro project to the Major Projects Office. This is a breakthrough. This is a breakthrough for Arctic sovereignty and sustainability. It will be a 100% Inuit-owned hydro energy project. It will save $1.9 billion in diesel costs over the next 50 years while providing affordable, reliable, emissions-free power in the Arctic. Now that's elements of the energy superpower strategy. The second strategy is to develop new trade and economic corridors that help us diversify our markets and build our.
All right. So the first portion there, as we mentioned, the Prime Minister talking about the two first projects, the LNG project and the Iqaluit Hydro. And again, as you notice, as he did in the first series of projects, Kits and Cubs, the Prime Minister taking time to talk about the embedded green component into it, and where applicable, the embedded Indigenous partnership or ownership component as well. So the things that he mentioned at the beginning of all of this, all those months ago, things that, they have to have a high likelihood of completion. They have to advance, economic interests of certain kind. They have to have an Indigenous component where applicable. They have to have a green element, a sustainability element, again, where applicable. All of those things are still, and lead, of course, to good union jobs. So those elements are wherever he can in these projects, he tries to highlight them. And nothing on that front has changed. That seems to be relatively consistent throughout it. The Iqaluit hydro project, replacing, that diesel with hydroelectric power. That's definitely better for the overall environment and the reduction of our emissions. LNG, again, there's a lot of people that are of two minds about it because it is a fossil fuel, yes, and you are burning it, but it is less carbon intensive. And if you can displace other fuels that are more carbon heavy, then it is an important step along the way. But again, right, how you actually produce it as well, and that type of stuff. There's ways to be greener about that. So, if you're substituting a dirtier fuel for a cleaner one, even though it's still dirtying, it's an improvement. And if you can, in the process of extracting that fuel, you are able to have some of the greenest ways of doing it in the entire world, then you get a competitive advantage business wise as well. But again, also that is better. And of course, this only works so long as the overall objective down the line is to continuously seek to reduce carbon emissions from what it is that you're doing, and that there's a plan eventually to substitute LNG with something that is renewable, just as oil was substituted with something cleaner, LNG. You can't just stop at the LNG portion, right? So if that's the overall plan going forward, then it's a step along the plan that does have tangible and noticeable environmental benefits, even though it's not the perfect final jumping from what we're doing to a perfect final end step. Right, it's more of a transitional step in that case. But he's there highlighting all of these elements every single time where he can. So the second part, as you noticed in the introduction there, where he was going, and I'll back it up so that we can get that portion again. Talking about the energy superpower part, now he's talking about developing new trade and economic corridors to help us diversify our economy, and one of the projects having to do specifically with that. So, Kits and Cubs, let's see what the Prime Minister has to say about these corridors he is checking here.
Power in the Arctic. Now that's elements of the energy superpower strategy. The second strategy is to develop new trade and economic corridors that help us diversify our markets and build our independence. And this is the potential of the Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor that we're also referring today to the Major Projects Office. The Northwest Corridor has extraordinary potential to unlock critical minerals development, clean power transmission, all under Indigenous leadership. We're talking tens of billions of dollars of investments, and in parallel, creating a new conservation area the size of Greece. The corridor involves building new transmission lines, upgrading highways, installing fiber and cell towers, and investing in communities, ports, and railways. By doing so, we'll strengthen our position as a global leader in clean energy and a leader in critical minerals. Now, what's crucial for this is the North Coast transmission line, one of the reasons we're here at BC Hydro. It's required to unlock this potential. And to help get it going, the Canada Infrastructure Bank is today announcing a loan of $140 million to BC Hydro. The North Coast transmission line will enable transformative industrial projects, including silicium, LNG, as well as multiple critical minerals developments in the Golden Triangle. The transmission line alone has the potential to create $10 billion in new economic activity in this area, while reducing emissions by up to 3 million tons annually. But more broadly, the Northwest Transmission Line will anchor clean energy industrial corridor for generations. And it has the potential to be connected with the Yukon through the Yukon-BC Grid Connect that will increase the Yukon's energy security and affordability, as well as there's a potential for an interconnect with Alberta to optimize reliability and sustainability in that province. Now, with respect to critical minerals, by 2050, global demand for those minerals is expected to increase fivefold, 5 times. The problem is, at present, the supply of those resources is highly concentrated in one country and is very risky. What the world wants is Canada to be the reliable supplier of critical minerals as the world moves to building a more sustainable economy. We're already amongst the top 5 global producers for 10 different critical minerals, and we hold rich geological endowment of all 34. But unlocking these resources through projects in the Ring of Fire in Ontario, La Fosse de Labrador in Quebec and Labrador, and right here, or almost right here, in the Golden Triangle in northern BC, this will attract hundreds of billions of dollars in new investment and create thousands of high-paying, not just jobs, careers, thousands of high-paying careers for miners, carpenters, engineers, and beyond across this country. The federal government is committed that these opportunities are realized in full partnership, including with equity ownership with First Nations communities. The Ring of Fire alone, give an example, in Ontario, has the potential to add over $22 billion to Canada's GDP over 30 years, while advancing growth in partnership with local Indigenous communities.
All right. So there again, we're talking about some various elements here to the plan in terms of the energy corridors. Mentioned here that these corridors will be critical for essential for critical minerals development and clean power transition. They will include, again, another green component. There's a conservation area that is the size of Greece, and then with the North Coast transmission line, when the Prime Minister was talking earlier about having more interconnected grids, that this is the type of thing that, for example, the Yukon-BC Grid Connect, which they are going ahead with, could fit into, and Alberta could then create an interconnection to that. And as you know, one of the main reasons Danielle Smith was opposed to a lot of green energy is because she kept on talking about, my role is to make sure that we have enough baseload power. So if you can get the North Coast transmission line completed and Alberta can connect onto it, well, that resolves a lot of Danielle Smith's concerns about having enough baseload power, because when Alberta needs a little more, well, then they can tap in to the line to which they are connected in order to achieve it. So this is important, again, if we're talking about having a resilient and greener east-west grid for electricity as we go forward. Also talking about the Canada Infrastructure Bank having announced $140 million loan to BC Hydro to help with some of this. And this is an interesting development here because it's one of the things that have that was in the budget that didn't get um, necessarily a lot of attention, but according to iPolitics, quote, Budget 2025 announces the government's, this is taken from the budget here, Budget 2025 announces the government's intention to amend the Canada Infrastructure Bank Act to enable it to make investments in any nation building projects that have been referred to the Major Projects Office, regardless of sector or class. Now, for those who are wondering, uh, about that, kits and cubs, the Canada Infrastructure Bank, CIB, was created in 2017, creation of Prime Minister Trudeau, with a $35 billion in federal tax dollars to help and bring in private investors in projects that would otherwise have none. The bank currently invests in projects that fit into one of these 5 sectors: public transit, clean power, green infrastructure, broadband, and trade and transportation. The new budget directive means that the Canadian Infrastructure Bank will consider the projects handpicked by the government to be referred to the Major Projects Office, whether or not they fit into one of these 5 priority sectors. So yeah, um, now one could make the case that some of these do fit into these 5 priority sectors, right? If we're talking about um, if you make the case that critical minerals are for the purposes of creating green power, even though critical minerals themselves are not a green power project, you could sort of find a way to shoehorn it in there. Or you could just basically create, a 6th category. So public transit, clean power, green infrastructure, broadband, trade and transportation, and projects referred to the Major Projects Office for that part. So that budgetary change has indeed been made. And what we're seeing here is that the first disbursement as a result of that budgetary change has also been approved and is going forward. So the government is moving relatively quickly as it applies to this particular change in the budget just announced, and already the first disbursement towards a project that's been identified and sent to the MPO is getting some benefit from that. So again, out of all the projects that are mentioned, right, we have some activity at the port of the port in Montreal. We have some activity with the Darlington nuclear, and here we have an initial loan already being made on this one particular project so that we can already start going forward with it at this moment. Again, not at the shovels in the ground phase, but in order to, how would you put it? Create some of the initial capital that will help start moving this North Coast transmission line project forward. And as mentioned as well, some of the green component here, once completed, it could contribute to reducing emissions by up to 3 million tons annually. Then the Prime Minister goes in a little bit and starts to talk about uh, what the critical minerals strategy will be, because in this particular series of projects that were announced, 3 of the projects of the 6 have to do with, in some capacity, mining. So we're going to see what the Prime Minister has to say about those specific projects here in this next segment, Kits and Cubs, that I'm going to present to you now.
The budget makes major investments to advance critical minerals projects, including a $2 billion critical minerals sovereign fund for those projects and a $1.5 billion first and last mile fund for related infrastructure, as well as expanded tax credits for investments. So here in the Golden Triangle, you can see where those applications would come once we build the transmission. In this context, we're referring to the Major Projects Office, Canada Nickel's Crawford project in Ontario, the Nouveau Monde Graphite Matawini mine in Quebec, and the Northcliffe Resources Sisson mine in New Brunswick. To say a few words about each. Crawford will anchor Canada's global leadership in clean industrial materials. It is situated in the world's second largest nickel reserve. It'll produce high-quality, low-carbon nickel, essential for batteries and green steel. Its projected emissions are 90% below the global average, and it has the potential for a net negative carbon footprint. Crawford will set the global standard for the future of responsible mining. The Sisson mine in New Brunswick will produce tungsten, the strongest metal in the world, and it'll position Canada as a reliable supplier for steel manufacturing, defense, and protective equipment. Et enfin, la mine Matawini de Nouveau Monde.
So then he continues here in French when he's talking about the Nouveau Monde graphite mine in the Quebec region. And with that, in French, he said, it will transform global battery supply chains, and this project will be integrated into the Battery Materials Manufacturing Center in Bécancour, Quebec, in order to produce batteries used in EVs and energy storage systems. And all of this will be fueled by Quebec's clean energy. The project will attract $1.8 million in investment. So here we're talking about nickel, we're talking about tungsten, we're talking about graphite, three specific minerals. The nickel, very important, not only in stuff like EV batteries, because lithium-ion EV batteries, and the only reason I know this is because my Beaver Sweeties, particularly researching this, has not only lithium, but has cobalt, nickel, and manganese, or NCM 111 chemically, the way that my Beaver Sweetie describes it. And nickel is very important there, but nickel is also an important element in terms of, I believe, reinforcing certain types of steel. So that can be used there. With tungsten, of course, one of the hardest materials in the world, and definitely has some defense applications. And of course, graphite also important for the whole electrification of pretty much everything at this point. Very important elements there. Finally, this is how the Prime Minister has decided to end his prepared remarks anyway, with regard to the announcement of these projects. So sort of the final pitch a little bit. And once again, you will notice that in the final pitch, he emphasizes yet again the issue of climate competitiveness, good union jobs, and Indigenous partnership. Always a central theme whenever he's making these.
I've talked a lot about building and specifics of what we're going to build together. But today is not just about what we build, it's also about how we build. We're building sustainably, in each case reducing emissions and investing in a clean energy future. Our energy and critical minerals projects are amongst the lowest carbon in the world. And moreover, they unlock major investments in sustainable growth for generations to come. Secondly, we're building in solidarity with Canadian workers, creating hundreds of thousands of high-paying union jobs. And we are always building in partnership with Indigenous peoples to ensure meaningful Indigenous ownership and major economic benefits, while promoting the conservation of our natural heritage for future generations. This approach reinforces that the impacts of our nation-building strategies, just like those that came before us, that these impacts will be generational. Consider my earlier reference to that railway in the Maritimes. It was built around the time of Confederation to move goods and troops there, to assert Canada's independence and help unite a young country. But that line eventually became part of the Canadian National Railway, which now spans more than 31,000 kilometers across this vast land, reaching here to Terrace and from Terrace to the world. That line moves $250 billion of cargo each year and employs nearly 25,000 Canadians. Its infrastructure is old as our nation itself, and it drives this huge economic activity across the country, employing tens of thousands of Canadians and uniting our nation. That's the power of nation-building projects. Projects that Canadians have built before, and projects that we are starting together to build again. Building Terrace strong, building BC strong, building Canada strong. Thank you very much. Merci, and I look forward to your questions.
So there you go. The overall end statement for the Prime Minister, how he packages it, how he's trying to sell it at the end. Interesting comment here from Kit Bucky. Investment in LNGA, it is indeed a step towards more efficient fuels, or is it a last attempt by ONG interests to keep flogging fossil fuels? Exactly, and that's why I was making that point that, if it's an end point, then yes. But if it is indeed one step, then you need to see the next step of the plan, right? We're not stopping at LNG, but the oil and gas and the coal and all that kind of stuff that is being replaced by LNG is eventually going to be replaced by renewable. Because if that's the overall plan, then it is a step towards more efficient fuels. But if that's just the end goal, okay, we're just going to switch to LNG, then yes, it's the latest attempt by ONG to keep interests, to keep flogging fossil fuels. And that's why, that's the caveat to the caveat, right? We have to just this is only a step towards the next one, because if it's not, then, it's still worth doing in terms of removing dirtier fossil fuels, but it's not the green project everybody thinks it is, if it's not intended from the get-go to be just an intermediary step. Because, yep, exactly, it pollutes. It definitely does. Kit Argos-Eggers is right there. All right, so we get this overall sense for the projects. Like I said, very consistent with the first announcement, very consistent styles of projects again from the first announcement as well. All of it is coherent and consistent as a package from what we heard before. Nothing is straying too far from the plan. Nothing's going outside the lines. There's nothing here that needs to be that stands out, or that says, hey, wait a minute, why is this here? This doesn't really seem to fit in with the others. All of it is pretty contained and coherent and cogent, and all of that. You can see again the steps of the plan overall unfolding and coming to be. You can see these projects, and you can sit there as a person who is fair-minded, of good faith, reasonably intelligent, reasonably informed, reasonably able to connect some dots, and do some critical thinking and, some deductive reasoning on your own, and see where it is that these pieces fit in a plan, and how they could be critical elements, how some of them could even be anchoring elements in certain industries, and where the potential to grow from there could be. Right. This part is pretty obvious. So in that sense, it's a good announcement. Then of course, right, comes the old saying, okay, we've got a plan. Now will it survive first contact? And that's what we have to see. But as the Prime Minister keeps on saying, plan beats no plan. And at least he's got a plan. And again, in terms of planning, everything there, all the elements have been hit. The things have that are needed are thought of. You can see in a lot of these areas where certain things can have a second level application as well, with regards to developing new technology, new processes. There's a lot of intellectual property that can be developed in the process of doing that, that can be exported, some technical expertise that can then be exported. Um, right. Um, Additional um, electricity generation, that's stuff that can be exported if not needed immediately, or be used to attract other types of businesses that have higher energy needs that want to be climate competitive on the world scene. There's a lot of doors opening here in these types of projects for what can happen down the road. But again, remember, kits and cubs, it is still a certain number of years down the road, and we have to be able to uh, get to that point and be patient enough as a country in order for us to have the time to see this plan develop and for us to get there. The one concern that I still have, and that I've been mentioning a lot since Prime Minister Mark Carney has become Prime Minister, I'm still not seeing much evidence of this government dealing with affordability issues now, because these are projects that are going to be happening over the next couple of years. And I'm not seeing the element in the budget, right? I'm not seeing all those supports that would be going into the operational funding budget, the one that he's trying to cut significantly over the next 3 years to ensure that people are well taken care of, that people that have lost their jobs, other than more generous EI and better access to retraining or retooling, there doesn't seem to be any there to support income or support families. And I don't see much with regard to addressing the cost of living in the immediate term. Now, financial data that we are getting seems to be indicating that there might be less of a pressing need to do that right now, but it would still be important to have it, right? And there's a certain element of this. You can only reduce costs so much in a world where you do need some inflation, right? The Bank of Canada's inflation target is not zero, it's between 2 and 3%. You need some inflation in the system. Um, so yeah, there's only so much you can reduce the cost of things. At some point, it really has to be about more people having more money in their pockets to be able to afford things that are increasing in prices. Right. So wages growing faster than inflation, for example, is one of these key important things. Um, you know, a tax cut that is given to increase the amount of revenue you have in terms of disposable money to spend uh, is another way to do that. But then you are also taking money out of government coffers to help fuel the types of supports that you need. And a mass tax cut for a whole bunch of people like the one that we were given that affected 22 million people. Yes, it puts a little bit more money in our pocket, but when you divide it among all of us, that big amount doesn't amount to uh, huge dollars for each of us individually, and that gets eaten up by inflation relatively quickly. Just regular inflation, but regular inflation goes up 2%, but your house insurance went up 8 or 9. Well, that could be the totality of your tax savings in right in 1 year, and you don't see no net benefit to your quality of life because the insurance company took the entire tax cut off your plate, and you still can't afford more food. Right. So um, there's only so much that the house pricings of housing and houses can go down because you have the competing pressure of people that have put a lot of their retirement savings into their homes, and they certainly don't want the value of their homes to decrease. And if it is increasing, they would hope that it could keep on increasing at a rate that keeps up at least with inflation or surpasses it, so that the value of their investment grows and their future quality of life grows. And if you were going to try and trim that off in order to lower prices for people today, there would be some type of reaction. So a lot of this has to do, if we're going to increase affordability, really, if we're being honest, we have to try to find a way to increase people's take home pay. So by having wages increase higher than inflation, and by things um, uh, such as, um, for example, in these types of projects, creating jobs that are indeed unionized, that have better salaries and better benefits, so that people can have good quality of life while they are working in these sectors. There's pretty much no other way around it. There's only so much you can cut costs, and without having to take some drastic measures that would have a lot of people pulling their hair out or screaming that the end of the world is nigh, or that we are delving into even more socialism, or whatever it is that they claim is happening when we decide to help each other out. But still, these things matter. There is an entire question and answer section that comes after this press conference that I invite you to watch. There's nothing particularly eye-popping in the answers, but there are some questions with regard to some Indigenous opposition and how things are sitting with Alberta, because Danielle Smith was pretty much saying, I expect a pipeline to be on this list, and there is no pipeline on this list, as we told you would be the case. Right, the project is just not further ahead, but it seems that the Prime Minister again has worked his magic and has managed to keep Danielle Smith very, very happy, because on their end they are working on a memorandum of understanding with regard to setting some terms and ground rules and ground baseline agreements between the federal government and the government of Alberta as to how such a pipeline project could be pursued. The one disappointing thing, however, if you are an Albertan, this is now 2 rounds of projects where there is nothing for Alberta, even though the Pathways project has been identified as a longer term project that they are indeed working on. And the Prime Minister and Danielle Smith are working on this memorandum of understanding for another pipeline. The ball is still in Danielle's court to find the proponent, and she's still nowhere near doing that. She's hoping that the having this memorandum of understanding in hand, that she'll be able to go out and see, we have this, now come and invest. I don't think that's going to work for her as well as she thinks it is. But for the moment, for the rest of us, it's keeping her happy and it's keeping her quiet. So we'll take that win. But yeah, with that specific thing, the disappointing part, if you are an Albertan, is because Danielle Smith has not learned the lesson of not putting all the eggs in one basket, which is what we've learned with the United States, which is why we're trying to diversify. Danielle Smith, when it comes to major projects of national importance, has put all her eggs in the pipeline basket. Now, a pipeline specifically, especially a bitumen pipeline, would probably never make the major projects list, because it has the 5 criteria, right? High probability of success and completion. Not that much. Indigenous partnership in a manner that's constructive, probably not so much. Has a green component, probably not so much. That's the whole reason that this Pathways Grand Bargain Alliance thing had to be done, because if they can at least capture the carbon that is generated in the process of extracting the oil, what they call decarbonized oil, but the oil itself is not actually decarbonized, because if you burn it, it has the exact same, and it's not like they're going into the oil and removing the carbon out of the oil so that when you burn it, there's less carbon. It's just, trying to reduce the amount of emissions produced in the process of extracting the oil and shipping it across and stuff like that to as close to zero as possible, which is still good and still needs to be done, because oil is going to be with us for a while, if only for plastics, right? Mr. Grizzly keeps on pointing out, go into a medical hospital and try to find anything that doesn't have some type of plastic, therefore petroleum in it, right? Good luck. Yes, and that part still very, very important, but it's not decarbonized oil as you would as I would think of it if you told me decarbonized oil, right? It's not decarbonized oil in the same way that fat-free yogurt is fat-free, right? The carbon is still in the oil itself. But um, so yeah, oil extraction on its own, however, right? And oil on its own, not particularly green, doesn't really fit in there. So th- it would be a really awkward project to include as a major project in terms of going to the MPO. It doesn't really fit. It's one of these things is not like the others type of thing. So that's why they're going the MOU route. So so long as there seems to be progress and active progress, Danielle Smith seems to be happy. But if you are an Albertan, you have a premier that has so little creativity and imagination that she can't think of one single project, not even one for all of Alberta, that has nothing to do with oil. Yes, but that could have something to do with transportation of things, that could have to do with critical minerals, that could have to do with who knows, any other type of thing, nuclear, right? She doesn't have anything at all. At all. She's got one project, she's got one project only, and it's that or bust. So even though this is a living list, and that projects can come on and off, there is nothing in the foreseeable future that would indicate that there could be a project for Alberta or an Alberta specific project anywhere on this list anytime soon. And that's because the premier is just too lazy to do her damn job and come up with a few. She's really trying to shoehorn Ottawa into making sure that an oil pipeline happens. Yes, and it would just be nice if some UCP voters in Alberta could realize that the entirety of Alberta's economy is not oil, and that there might be something else in all of Alberta's economic portfolio that could generate some additional benefit, or that could benefit from this process, but the UCP is just not on. Because they're really trying to create this sharp contrast. It's this or nothing. And if it's not this, then we have a national unity problem. It's not particularly serving Albertans well. I mean, there were 3 projects, BC related projects, in this group of 6. New Brunswick specifically had one. There is no reason, after a series of 2 sets of announcements, that there is absolutely nothing in there for the 4th most populous province of Canada. But that's the situation, and the reason that that's the situation is because the premier has presented nothing. I've tried nothing, and I'm all out of ideas. If I was in Alberta, I'd be right pissed right now, but I'd be right pissed at my provincial government. Because this is just like on renewables, when she pulled out and decided, no, I'm going to slow. We were a leader, but we're just going to let that leadership go and let the rest of the world take over our advantage on that. She's doing that with any type of major project whatsoever. Any type. Because she's just foregoing the entire opportunity and betting it all on black. It's not particularly sound planning. It's not particularly good governance. There should be more screams going, hey, why are you letting this opportunity just sail past us? But that's Danielle Smith. She's an oil lobbyist masquerading as a premier. And she's doing that job faithfully to whoever is pulling her strings. But yeah, none of this is in the best interest of Albertans. You should be flooding the zone with ideas and projects, so that if one doesn't get picked up, at least there is something going on and Alberta gets their fair share. But she's not doing that, and of course, if that oil pipeline never comes, and we're in year 2 or 3 of this, and there's now $300 billion of worth of investment projects, and none of them are going to Alberta. It's going to be holy hell. Oh, look at what Canada's doing to us. Look what Ottawa's doing to us again. Look what those damn liberals are doing to us. No, it's what you didn't do. We all invited you to the party. You decided not to come. We invited you to a party. It's like we're inviting Danielle Smith to, Alberta through Danielle Smith to come to the party, and Danielle Smith is going, yeah, but will Prince Edward Island be there? Because if she's there, I'm not coming, right? Type thing. And it's like, dude, it's my party. I invite who I want at my party because it's my party. So if you are not going to come to my party because I have another friend that I would like to be at the party also, if that's more important to you than actually being at my party to participate in my joy, then more power to you. But I'm not going to disinvite my other friend just because you can't stand them. It's like, and if your participation in my party is contingent upon me not inviting another friend, why would I do that? Right? So what Danielle Smith is strategically doesn't even make sense. Like I know that in her mind, she is seeing that if I focus everything on that, because it creates additional pressure on the federal government to approve that, because if there's not that, then they know I'm going to blow a gasket, and I'm going to threaten national unity all over again, whatnot. And he certainly doesn't want that. But Prime Minister Mark Carney has successfully put the ball back in Daniel's court to find the proponent, and now has successfully found a way to maneuver Nala and bitumen pipeline away from the Major Projects Office process and into its own separate process, in which Danielle is still ultimately responsible for finding the proponent. And I'm going to guess that before that there's ever any approval whatsoever for such a pipeline, that anything pathways and carbon capture and storage would have to somewhat prove itself that it can actually work, that the alleged decarbonization of a barrel of oil, to the extent that is possible with regard to the extraction processes, can actually be realized and is economically feasible before we go ahead and say, okay, well, let's go ahead with that pipeline. Because if you gave the okay to the pipeline without the pathways technology or the carbon capture and storage technology being proven and being able to be deployed at scale, then it doesn't meet the green criteria. It's absolutely inherently, intrinsically necessary that the pathways thing be approved and can be demonstrated to work for there to be a pipeline to happen. So I don't see a pipeline. I don't see how it is possible for Danielle Smith to get this pipeline approved while she's still in office. It's more likely that we're going to have a new premier of Alberta before we ever get to a stage where Pathways has proven itself enough to give the okay for a pipeline, a bitumen pipeline, in this step-by-step process. And I don't know if Danielle is just not seeing it at the moment, or thinks that she's going to get the go-ahead regardless of whether or not Pathways proves itself. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure how this pipeline thing that she has in mind still goes forward, even though Mark Carney is being incredibly adept and deft at stick handling this file, and seemingly keeping Danielle very happy at the moment. Ah, boy. All right. Kits and Cubs, let's see. Do I have anything else for you today? Oh, yes. The Bill Kelly thing. I did manage to find a little bit more about where it is he specifically has talked about investment. And yes, indeed, it was a little bit of a an editing thing because I was off only by a small little margin. But let's go back to what Mr. Kelly was saying there, and more to the specific point.
On the investment, so they're not really helping us economically. They're all short-term solutions. See, here's what's going on that I find interesting. And when we talk to other folks and economists, especially the guys from BMO, from Scotiabank and TD and others that seem to be analyzing this already, what the government is doing here is thinking outside what politicians usually think. Now, I have mentioned, and we've talked about this on the podcast, you recall, politicians and governments, whether it's federal, provincial, even municipal governments, if cut through the BS here, they usually just think in 3-4 year cycles. In other words, the next election. What do I have to say? What do I have to do to get your vote? I'm going to be, I want you to like me. So I'm going to give you things on the plate here that are going to make you happy short term. But they may not have any long-term benefit. And that's all good. I mean, I understand that, we all need a little sugar high every now and then, a little sweetness to kind of help our lives along. And that's good. But there needs to be long-term planning. And governments have been a terrible entity in trying to give us that long-term planning. What Carney is doing is changing the whole idea. Yeah, there needs to be some short-term wins here, and those are going to be included in the budget, he tells us, but there has to be long-term. How is this going to affect the budget 5 years, 6 years, 10 years down the road? Governments haven't thought about that before. Just because their message then is, well, oh yeah, we can approve that program, but if you re-elect us, we'll do that. And in other words, it's all full of promises. Carney is saying, no. You have to set the groundwork for that now. If you want this to be successful short-term and successful and even better 8-10 years down the road, you've got to have a plan. And this is the plan that he's talking about. It's kind of a revolutionary way for governments to start operating with budgets, but I think it's the right way to go. And he talked simplistically, and we mentioned this on a previous podcast, about capital spending and operational spending. They're two separate things, and you can't just lump them together and say, well, this is the number. It's government spending, but it's government spending in a different way. Oftentimes, operational spending, you don't necessarily get a return on that investment. Those are things like CPP. Those are things like the dental plan, the pharmacare plan, the medical plan in general, healthcare, things of this nature. Those things don't necessarily and probably shouldn't be counted on for a return on investment, but there's still things that government needs to be committed to. And sadly, past governments, especially conservative governments, have had those as the first things on the chopping block when they want to cut spending. Now, we don't need those social programs. We don't need those government assistance programs. Yeah, we do. Yes, we do, because as good as this economy is going to get, and as profitable as it might be, there are always going to be people that are going to need financial assistance and help one way or another, or, whether it's going to be health care, whatever the case might be. And you can't turn your back on that. And this government has to realize that. And I think that's going to be part of it. That's the operational spending. Then there's the capital spending. So those are things that they're going to be talking about and that Minister Champagne's going to be talking about. But it goes back to, as we say, investments. And I know that that's a word that gets thrown around an awful lot, but for a guy who's been the Bank of Canada governor and the Bank of England governor and involved in finances all his life, he gets what investments are. It's just a catchword for people like Poilievre, who's never been in business, never had a job aside from being an MP. They don't get it. Carney has walked in those circles. He swam in those waters. He understands, and he talks to these business leaders, and he knows what it takes to get the economy back on track. And it's going to take time. There's a commercial, I can't even remember which investment firm it was, but it seemed like every 10 minutes during the World Series.
There we go, Kits and Cups. So that was the part. It was the part just before the part I had showed you originally. But making the point here that when Mark Carney talks about making investments, given his background, it's an entirely different meaning of the word investment than we have grown accustomed to hear as a mere synonym for the word spending. And when he's talking about the capital and the operational spending, which is a point that I've made a lot on this show, right? It's the operational spending in terms of, for example, when we had the crash in 2008 and Stephen Harper was doling money out and we had the Canada Economic Action Plan and you had all those signs and there was a snowmobile trail there and a curling rink being upgraded here and a hockey rink being upgraded here. And all these things are important. And what they did, it was stimulative as it was needed because it created some economic activity, mild in various regions where there was money there and people had jobs. And then you had the multiplier effect of spending that dollar in your community. And that's good. And you do get some benefit from that. And that goes so far. That goes a certain distance. But in this particular case, when we're talking about capital investments and keeping this money, not only do you get the multiplier effect from keeping the money in the community type of stuff, but then you get a tangible benefit, right? You get a tangible asset. You get something that's there that creates jobs that then create more of those dollars that get that circulative effect in the community, right? And these two, as opposed to giving just a grant or a subsidy or a bailout, where a lot of that money, some of that goes back on the company, but then some of the company sometimes takes that money and then just buys back some of its own shares. And if they do that and they buy back some of their own shares, that money may not even go back into the economy. It might just be taken right out of the Canadian economy and go somewhere else and not have any additional benefit here. So what you spend, how you spend it, who you spend it on, and what conditions and strings you attach to that money really does matter. And if we are really talking about, as the Prime Minister says, catalyzing scarce public dollars to maximize investment, attraction of investment and private investment, well, then you definitely want to be directing those dollars not as just straight up grants and contributions to companies or bailouts and buyouts, but link them to tangible outcomes. So, for example, you get this subsidy if you are able to reduce your GHG emissions by this much. You get it if you're able to reduce your methane emissions by this much. You get it if you are able to show that you have that salaries in your place have increased higher than inflation for 3 years in a row because you've allowed unionization. You can get this additional money rather than giving it to you as a subsidy. We're going to give it to you to actually build this plant that will do this type of thing and generate this economic activity in the future. We will give. So it's just using the same money, but what strings we're going to have attached into what envelope you are putting it and what you expect in return for it specifically, and whether it is money that is just you're putting in people's pockets really quickly so that it could be spent and circulate in the economy rapidly to get a rapid, immediate stimulative effect, or whether or not it's something that you're going to put in a longer term project that has capacity for future economic generation. So there are, and each one of these things has a place at a certain time in an economy, right? If you take a hit all of a sudden, like for example, COVID happens, and all of a sudden, whoops, you're screwed. The whole world has to shut down. Then, money immediate in your pocket for an immediate stimulative effect to keep the wheels of the economy going, keep people buying stuff, keep inventories depleting so that there's a need to replace these inventories so you have these jobs and that people can go to. That's very important. But in a case like this, where the economy is, for all intents and purposes, it's not great, but humming along on those aspects, well, then, you might want to be looking at something that is, longer term and future generating as well, which is what we are doing in this particular instance. Like I said, my only main concern is that we may be ignoring the near-term issues of affordability, which are still very real for a lot of people, and not directing a lot of money towards that, because that would be operational money that, again, right, sugar high money, that quick money given to people so that it circulates into the economy and is stimulative, but that does not necessarily go to anything long-term. There is not a lot of that, and there doesn't seem to be a lot in the budget to address those types of things. So those issues are going to continue being pressed, and that's an issue on which Pierre Poilievre, unfortunately, is focused and keeps hammering, and it is an exposed flank with regards to this government. Now, whether or not the government is making the bet that Pierre Poilievre doesn't really have much to offer in terms of solutions with regard to that, and is still back to repeating the same old things he's been saying for the last 2-3 years, and therefore people might be more interested in what Carney is doing. It still doesn't change the fact that we are in a K-shaped economy. Again, when I say that, if you think of the letter K, you've got the bar that's straight up and down, but then you've got one bar going up and one bar going down. And that bar going up is about 10% of people in the economy. They're doing really well. They're well invested. They've got stocks, they've got property, they've got all that type of stuff. And, as this frothy business environment is happening, as the price of gold is going up, as stock markets are going up, and even though things are completely overvalued, they are doing very well. But everybody that's on the bottom part of that K, about 90% of us, if our salaries are not growing to keep up with the cost of inflation, or even if they are, or if they are surpassing the cost of inflation, but our insurance fees are going up way higher, any other types of things that we're doing, and that comfort is being eroded away gradually and slowly. These types of big investments don't necessarily, that might have that generative effect 3, 4, 5 years down the road, don't help us now. And waiting 3 or 4, 5 years for the benefits of that to fall down upon us, if they do, while we're still dealing with affordability measures, there's only a certain amount of patience for that within the overall social psyche. And there is going to come a time where the Prime Minister is going to have to address that. A possible hypothesis is that the Prime Minister, being a central banker, is seeing that, yes, there are some pressures, but there isn't a need to really address that now, so they can focus more of the money into that income and economic activity and investment generating type of activity at the moment. And so something get a little tight over the following year, that there might be some funds there at that point that can be put towards the operational one, and to help people with the day-to-day costs of living. But there doesn't seem to be much right now, and nothing really coming down the pike. Hopefully, there are some people working on some type of major reform of EI, so that's the system that can be used should, for example, next year. And this might be also keeping your powder dry thing right now, that if the government of Canada is fearing that the US government might put the kibosh on CUSMA or NAFTA 2 some point next year, to have that powder dry to come in with that instant stimulative, here's $2,000, go out, spend it right away, type thing, that would be available at that point, and doesn't want to spend it now, which is what we saw with the tax cut, right? When Pierre Poilievre at first was offering a not much bigger tax cut, but a bigger tax cut than the Prime Minister was offering. And then we found out, come the budget, how Mr. Poilievre was having fun with numbers, and it actually had changed the numbers so that his tax cut was actually less at first, and then back-ended near the end. But committing to a whole second year of tax cuts that were not necessary to commit to at the time, because we had no idea what the economic situation would be. So he was forward spending, depleting some capital. So the Prime Minister was more conservative in the size of the tax cut that he gave, but was very clear that it was 1% off across the board, as opposed to a percentage of a percentage. And then you had to try to figure out and do the math, which was the conservative plan. So it could also be that similar type of caution that the Prime Minister is exercising, not putting the money up now, because we still have 85% of our trade protected under CUSMA, and having that pot of money available, or going into that pot of money should the rug be pulled out from under us with CUSMA. and then rushing in with it. So I can see both scenarios, but it does create a situation right now that if there's people before all of this, during the election campaign, who are wondering how it is that they're going to make ends meet. And if you're already on the lower end of the economic scale, you're probably not paying that much in taxes. So that tax cut probably didn't make a massive material difference for you on an annual basis of how much more you're going to food you're going to be able to afford, or how much more breathing room you have after you pay your rent. Chances are you're not a homeowner if you're at the really bottom part of the K in this K-shaped economy. So there isn't that much there for you, and there hasn't been. And that's the part that I'm keeping my eye on very closely, because if there's some trouble that can come and backfire on Mark Carney, it would probably be coming from that sector of the economy. Because if it hits relatively quickly, and there's not a lot of breathing room there, if any at all, for people, Canadians, fellow Canadians who are in that situation. So, fingers crossed that there is somebody on the team that is keeping their eye on that, and that maybe the lack of a signal of that so far is indeed a contingency way forward, because there is the prospect of a much more devastating move that can come from south of us. And we don't want to delve into those reserves right now, because we might need them later. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do, especially when you share a little bit of yourself, stating why it is that our content has resonated with you, because you are influencers in your own circles, and there are people who look up to you and to your opinion, so that when you recommend stuff, it has more weight. So thank you, because that type of advertising is priceless for us. Kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you, because you are a busy kid and cub on the go. Sometimes you're out to taking on the world, but you still want to remain informed and don't have time to watch the show live with the Damn Fam, or at your own time on a YouTube. So thanks to the Ray Girl, kids and cubs, you can go to our Podpage site if you scan this QR code, podpage.com/the truenortheagerbeaver, with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, the podcast bandwidth, it comes directly to your favorite podcast feed. And then, lightweight and portable as we are, you can pop us in your ears. And there you go. You are being an active member in society, getting through your day, taking care of your family, your friends, your loved ones, your community, and remaining informed at the same time. Now, if you would like to help us, kids and cubs, well, we would certainly be very, very welcoming of your help. And you can do that by taking a trip to our YouTube page and clicking on our buttons like, share, and subscribe. Kids Elaine and Cassie would definitely approve, not improve, approve. And it helps us with the algorithm when you do. And when we see our numbers go up, we get a little bit happy as well. So thank you for all of that. And if you would like to support us in other ways, say financially, because we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, and we would appreciate your help with that. That QR code that just appeared would bring you to our coffee page, which is ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you will find the emergency hydration fund, where for only a couple of toonies and loonies, you can do your part to fight the terrible, terrible scourge that is dry beaver, and keep your favorite beaver, that would be moi, very, very moist. Because a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. And I'm a very happy beaver. So there you go. You've been doing your job, kids and cubs. Thank you for all of your support. Now, if you are buying Canadian, which I know a lot of you are, we have a way for you to contribute to the hydration fund that respects that. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. If you send us a direct bank transfer, boom, the Broligarchy in the United States gets no cut whatsoever. Your donation, we get it all. Your donation goes further. It's a win-win-win. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, we have our super chat and our memberships. Please, if you can support us that way, every drop and tittle adds to the pot. Soon you got the kid as well as the poodle. That's a quote from Madonna's song More from Dick Tracy. Once you have it all, nothing's better than more, more, more. So, uh, and so if you do have more, we will gladly, and graciously accept it. So thank you, Kids and Cubs, for all you do for us. Because democracy is something that you do, Kids and Cubs. House of Commons petition number 6821. Oops. We are experiencing some the technical difficulties that had been being experienced have now been resolved. So there you go. House of Commons petitions E6821 to make it such that our MPs pass some type of law that encourage media ownership in Canada to be owned by Canadians for Canadians to produce news that is in the best interest of Canadians. Very important petition. If you can take some time to sign it, Kits and Cubs, we would be very happy. I just included a link in the chat for you. We are now at 6,039 signatures, so it is starting to grow and gain some momentum. Very excited about that. And of course, Kits and Cubs are tried and true. Petition number E6679, signature date closes in 13 days. And this is to encourage our MPs to pass some laws that would have some consequences for politicians who deliberately spread misinformation. This petition has 40,708 signatures so far, and 13 days left for you to put your signature on that. So, Kits and Cubs, if you are able to help, we would be very appreciative. And of course, if you live on Prince Edward Island, of course, you have a provincial by-election coming up. Kits and Cubs for, I believe, is it? It's not called a ward, is it? It's District 2 in, yes, District 2, Georgetown, Ponal in Prince Edward Island. For your representative, the leader of the Liberal Party of Prince Edward Island, Robert Mitchell, will be running in that by-election, trying to secure his seat as party leader. Deadline for candidate nominations is Friday, November 21st at 2 p.m. So one more week. If you are considering maybe running for something, and advance polls will take place on November 29th, December 1st, and December 5th. Voting will be open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. each of those days. With voting day itself, main voting day being on December 8th. So please, Kits and Cubs, if you have the opportunity there, make sure that you are getting ready to plan your vote and all of that good stuff, because it matters. And let's see if the leader of the PEI Liberal Party will get a seat there. He might have a good chance, because this is a district that this particular candidate is familiar with. I think that they've either lived in the area for a while, or that he grew up. Yeah, he grew up. Sorry, in Eastern PEI and spent much time in the district throughout his life. So a district with which he's familiar, and that might be a bit of an edge for him. But again, we'll see. That's why we go and vote, right? Mm-hmm. There you go. Words of wisdom, Kids and Cubs. If it is as gorgeous a day where you are as it is, get outside and enjoy not, I wouldn't say the last sunlight, but enjoy some sunshine today and a little bit of fresh air. Maybe take a nice walk. well, with someone you care about, or alone if you like solitude and just want some time with your thoughts. But it might be a lovely day for a walk and just to get some fresh air and, you know, get your legs moving, get the blood circulating, and all that kind of good stuff. So, those are my words of wisdom. Just to move. Motion is lotion, like this. And if you can do it while enjoying the great outdoors, why not? Okay, kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, at the count of three, if I may beg your indulgence, could you please, kids and cubs, say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on one, two, three. I heard you. I heard you. All of you. You did it in such beautiful unison. How? How can I say no? I just can't. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Right, kids and cubs, little bit of Canadians who make us proud. For those of you who are tennis fans, Felix Auger-Aliassime takes on Alexander Zverev at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time at the ATP Singles Finals in Turin. If Auger-Aliassime wins his match, he advances to the finals and will be considered one of the top four players of the season. So that is definitely a very important moment for him in his career. And we also, kids and cubs, have someone to celebrate here, and we will show you their lovely smiling face. But yes, this is a very, very happy Canadian. As you can see, they are holding what appears to be a very shiny bronze medal, and that is Sofiane Metot, who finished on the podium at the Trampoline World Championships on Sunday in Pamplona, Spain, taking home a bronze medal, finishing 10th in the qualifying rounds, meaning she was the last to qualify for the final. The Quebec native won bronze in the women's individual event with a score of 56.810. She also scored a perfect 10 in the horizontal displacement in the world's trampoline finals. Well, that is very hard to do. That's extremely hard to do. Metot is also an Olympic bronze medal winner and from Paris 2024 when she made her Olympic debut. So there you go. And also, for those who are wondering, the hockey jersey for Milano Cortina 2026 has been revealed. And kids and cubs, I am happy to show it to you. You have the home and the away. So the white jersey has a red maple leaf on it with some stripes, and the red jersey has a black maple leaf on it with stripes. Pretty stylish looking gear here. Not sure how I feel about the black maple leaf, which is kind of interesting, but I do like the sharp contrast of black on red. So it does look really stylish. It's just something about seeing the maple leaf in black that's kind of interesting. It takes a couple of seconds for my eyes to get used to. But there you go, kids and cubs. That is what the hockey jerseys will look like at the Olympics for men's and women's teams, I assume here. But like I said, the home and the away jersey. So again, less than 100 days. I'm very excited. As you know, kids and cubs, I'm this big Olympic nut. And hopefully, once again, we'll be able to have our good friend Devin Haru come in to visit us and give us a preview of the Olympics, Winter Olympics and Winter Paralympics as we go in to another season of grabbing our flags and sitting in front of the TV and yelling at the top of our lungs until we are hoarse, which is our civic duty during the Olympics. All right, kids and cubs, that's all for me right now. All of you have a most beaverific day. And like magic, I am gone. Amour et bisous. See you on Monday.